What does guardian of the person actually mean? What does a guardian of the person get to do? Those are the questions I want to address in this video. So to become a guardian of the person in Ontario, a person must go to court and they walk away with a court order if they're successful, giving them the power of guardian of the person. But what does this magical piece of paper actually mean? Because that's really, at the end of the day, that's what they get, a piece of paper with a judge's signature. So the power of a guardian that is bestowed by this court order and falls under the Substitute Decisions Act. It covers 6 different areas of decision making. So the one that most people think about and generally need is healthcare. So all healthcare decision making, whether that's decisions about medication or surgery, it can also encompass admission to a care facility or even a group home, so where somebody lives. So that brings us to the next one, shelter. So there's healthcare, there's shelter. And often people can get by without having guardianship over shelter, but if there's a dispute or different opinions about where somebody should live, it can be quite helpful for there to be clarity around who makes decisions around shelter. There's also clothing. That's the third one, clothing. I have found clothing does not come up an awful lot in law. It's rare that anybody says, excuse me, who's the guardian for clothing? But technically clothing does fall under personal care. And there are cases I've been involved with where my client's loved one does not dress appropriate for the weather, for example, due to their mental illness. So it does come up. So that's healthcare, shelter, clothing. There's also nutrition. So that generally feeds into what somebody eats. And in many cases, that legal status doesn't really get anywhere. So for example, if somebody becomes guardian over a relative with schizophrenia, their loved one might just eat what they're going to eat. Just because they have a piece of paper saying they get to make nutrition decisions doesn't mean they actually practically can control what their loved one eats. However, if they're guardian of their parent who's 90 years old in long-term care, in that case, they're having discussions with the home about what is actually being fed, what meals are being served. In that case, being guardian over nutrition can actually have some tangible effect. So there's also hygiene and safety. Those are the last 2. Hygiene relating to showering, for example, so that can be directing a PSW to assist with showering or bathing or other hygiene aspects. And safety can be all kinds of things. So a few examples I've seen of safety. I had a client once who was guardian of property and guardian of the person, and part of what she wanted to do was install carbon monoxide detectors in her mother's home. And so under the power of both of those 2 things, it was part of her plan for keeping her safe was to install detectors that her mother did not want there. And so the court, as part of authorizing her to be guardian, approved her plan to put in carbon monoxide detectors and smoke alarms, that kind of thing. So that fell under safety and property, kind of fell a little bit under both. And so she was able to do that. So the 6 categories, I'll recap, the 6 categories are clothing, nutrition, shelter, safety, hygiene, and healthcare. A guardian of the person might have authority over all 6, or they might seek what's called partial guardianship. If they don't need the full guardianship, they can just choose which of those 6 categories they think are needed, where their loved one is capable of some things and incapable of others. The idea is to go with the least restricted option. So if somebody has some capacity or it's not necessary to have a guardian in those areas, then the idea is to only apply for what is truly needed to assist the person, because guardianship is a big infringement of someone's liberty. And so it's meant to be last resort and really kind of narrowed as much as possible so we don't infringe on rights any more than is necessary to keep that person safe. So it's always this balancing act in law. So that's it for this video. I hope you learned something new, and I'll see you in the next one.